right, welcome back to the Footy Museum. I'm still not used to this video thing. Oh my gosh.
Stop
But it's
looking at
gonna
yourself.
I'm looking at you, look at me, but I can't help but look at
Oh,
myself
I'm looking at
because
myself.
you're looking at man, look at
Just kidding.
but today's a great example why we did it, because we're going to be talking to Kay Stellar from Rose City Riveters, which is one of the most dynamic supporter groups in the world. They obviously are the support group of the Portland Thorns, and we get to see some great examples of work that Kay and her colleagues have done for them. But before we do that, there's a few things I wanted to touch on this last week, and wondered if there was anything else, anything you wanted to. First, I wanted to talk about this. So this past Wednesday, I believe,
Was it that long ago already?
yes, more dreams of you and I, and you separately. I went with Tekla, my daughter, and this is from my vantage point, and then way up to the right, somewhere high up, was Maria with her
Oh, don't
husband
rub it
Jeremy.
in.
And this was the much billed
You and your free
Chicago Chicago Fire Inter Miami matchup that the team really pushed as Messi comes to Chicago. He did not come because he's injured, and as of today, Miami are officially out of the playoffs.
Yeah, but he's not
62,
injured anymore.
no, he played the game that put him out. Yeah, just 2 days. Like, really, what happened in 2 days, Messi? But 62,000 people did show up in what turned out to be a 4-1 route for the Fire, and it was really exciting to be in that stadium when it was full. It was jumping. The supporters groups weren't so happy, though. They started the game with a kind of a protest to the owner, Joe Mansueto, who has kept on. It looks like will continue to keep on, the sporting director, who makes a lot of questionable decisions, which leads to what happened in last night when I brought my daughters to see, hopefully, the Fire clinch a playoff, and they blow it to Charlotte FC. It was not great. It was not a great thing. So we have now a situation where I guess technically the Fire could make it. They were up here at 8 before yesterday. Now they're down. And this confused me. So this line is the playoff line.
Uh-huh.
DC is above it, but they're already eliminated because
How did that?
Well, they played all their games.
Oh,
And
so
they
somebody.
have a lower goals per game. So actually, Chicago, New York, and DC are currently tied for 9th. And I think whoever put this on the website is screwed up, because it should really be Chicago, New York are tied for 9th, and DC is actually lower because they have a lower points per game.
Mm-hmm.
And each of these other teams have the same amount of points, but a higher points per game. But anyway, that was sad. So I don't know about this team. So I just wanted to share that with our viewer.
But you got a cool T-shirt.
I did. I did pick this up, which, unbeknownst to us, after we talked about them, was it 2 weeks ago?
Yes, 2 weeks ago.
They had the actual Sting team at Soldier Field, the 81 champions, and they had these shirts. And this is the best thing that's happened related to the Fire this season. So I did get that. Anything good in your week, Maria?
Oh, let's see what happened. What happened with Leeds? Yes. It was a great game because it was at 9 a.m. and it was broadcasting on ESPN Plus. Oh, and they won. So that was quite exciting. We'll just forget about the Wednesday loss to Sheffield. But this morning, or yesterday morning, a glorious win. And it was an exciting game. It was a little frustrating. Lots of like really near misses and stupid mistakes. But
yeah,
it's Leeds.
Well, so that's what's going on with us. Why don't we jump to our interview with Kay to find out what's going on with a very successful top of the table team, the Portland Thorns and the Rose City Riveters supporter group. Okay, so as I mentioned, here we are with our special guest today, Kay Stoller. Kay is a member of the Rose City Riveters, which is the famous supporters group for the Portland Thorns. She is a carpenter based in Portland, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about the process of working on some tifos for the Thorns and kind of that amazing community they have around one of really the top teams in the country. So Kay, welcome to the Footy Museum.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So, Kay, the Rose City Riveters are probably one of the most well-known supporters groups in the NWSL. You're a member of that group. What's it like? How'd you start? How'd you get involved? How long have you been a member? And what makes the Rose City Riveters unique as a supporters group?
I first became a member of the Rose City Riveters sometime during the second season. I first saw them in action midway through the first season, and then I went away and came back to Portland and saw them again, and they were still as loud and cheerful and everything that they are now, but bigger. And I just thought they were impressive and they were fun and they seemed just, that's where you wanted to be inside the stadium. So when I came back to games in the second season, I found my way over there and I slowly crept down into the group as I got more comfortable getting into the chants and stuff like that. And yeah, I've been a member ever since then, ever since the second season. And yeah, wouldn't change anything about it.
So the Riveters have created some of the best known tifos in the last few years. They're thoughtful, they're ambitious, they often have references to other arts and cultures and literature. What do you think it is about the Rose City Riveters that creates this kind of fosters this really creative atmosphere where this type of artistic ambition is supported and developed?
I think it's all about collaboration, especially within the core group of us. There are 7 members, active members, I want to say, give or take a couple every now and then, of our tifo crew. And it is basically, we kind of, at the beginning of most seasons, we come up with a concept of what we kind of want to see the season be. And we just start having conversations and, we talk about different, anything we see essentially that we think could resonate with the people in the crowds and with the team, be it comic books or movies or, anything like that, a poster or something like that. And we start a conversation and we just bounce ideas off of each other. And there's really no bad idea. Everything kind of gets worked in some way or another, but we just have a conversation. We just have conversations about it, and we just bounce ideas off each other constantly. And we just think, even if it doesn't make it to a tifo, we find a way to do it in another way, be it player banners or things like that, like rail banners that we hang over the north end. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's collaboration for sure. There's not one single person who drives a single tifo. Someone might have the idea, but then all of us collectively put in our own thoughts and feelings and would this look better this way, or would these words should be better than these words, or things like that. And the underlying thing is always what is the message that we want to send? That's the biggest thing. It's what do we want people to get out of it? And yeah.
Yeah, well, when I look at your group's crest here too, another big thing in that is the city itself, mm-hmm. right along the top. And Portland's amazing because it's home to 2 top level teams that actually share a stadium. And mm-hmm. my sense is that the Riveters also at times collaborate with Timber's army. Is there a lot of crossover between the two and support between the two groups?
I think as a whole, like the Timbers Army and the 107ers, which is a non-profit organization that we're
Mhm.
both under, we've been a part of them since of that umbrella since the Riveters came to be. There we have conversations with the tifo crew, but generally we don't necessarily involve ourselves like in each other's
Okay.
processes because they tend to do like they definitely love horror more than we do. I mean, we did Midsummer this year,
Right.
which was a bit terrifying. But generally, we do Shakespeare, they do horror. That's kind of
Yeah.
like yeah. And I mean, we talk to each other, but for the most part, we both respect that we do have like we're doing the same thing, but we're doing it in a different way, different concept
Mhm.
wise. So if we need, because we are newer at this, they've been doing it for quite some time now.
Yeah.
Anytime we have questions or we need help or concept ideas of if we could do like they did one The Shining this year where they pulled down a part of the tifo to expose Jack Nicholson. And it
Yeah.
was like things like that where you don't think you could do it. And it's like having conversations with them and, going
Just
actually like,
technical things like how do you
yeah,
get the layering right, the timing.
yeah,
And it
yeah,
seems like Providence Park is uniquely set up to
mm-hmm,
highlight supporter tifo large scale ones because of
yeah,
its history of an old baseball stadium with that kind of curved area where you all sit is very
yeah,
theatrical. It's very unique with
yeah,
a deep overhang.
yeah.
Yeah.
And because it's wooden rafters more or less on the top
Uh-huh.
of the old part of the new stadium, it's where all of our ropes are rigged. And so it's perfect. It's almost like that stadium was designed for us instead of for baseball.
I know. It is.
Yeah.
It's wild. I mean, everyone always says it's one of their favorite US soccer sites to visit to see a game, even after the addition.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
tends
And I feel
to.
like with the addition and with their roof that overhangs to it, like it keeps a lot of the noise in even better now.
Yeah. So now we're going to look at a few of the tifos you've worked on with the Riveters. And this first one, I believe, is from like 6 or 7 years ago. But you mentioned we were speaking before the interview that it was one of your favorites and one that you had the most fun working on. Do you want to give us a little explanation of what we're looking at?
So this is Shield Maidens. It was our 2017 home opener. It was the day we were presented with the shield for winning for basically becoming top of the ladder in the previous regular season. And so the concept behind this was obviously protecting Providence Park because that was our home. And we wanted to make it formidable. And so we basically had just droves of people came in and made their own shields that to them, protected Portland. You could use to protect Portland and
Mhm.
Providence Park. And so, yeah, the idea was basically you come into our home, we're going to protect it, and you're not going to win.
I love the layers that you get in so many of the activations you do, like considering the back with the shields up,
Yeah.
and then everyone is obviously holding up shields. What are on the shields that the supporters are holding up behind the front three figures?
It was a mix of so many things. It was essentially in the beginning the idea was to try to make it something that would that you could actively use, that you would think of when you wanted to protect something.
Mhm.
And so I think originally we just had gosh, I mean it was such a long time ago. I think we just had something like some targets and some just not weapons or anything like that,
Mhm.
but just things that I don't know, they're just designs on the shield in a way that, you know, made you think that you were like in the 17th century war or something like that. But then as more and more people came in, it was just like, what do you want to keep safe and protected?
Hmm.
So people started putting their pets on there, and people put just anything and everything that you can
Anything?
possibly think of. Like I think we had some Pokemon. I did a drop bear. We had goalkeeper gloves because, you know, that was the most important part for us for protecting it, was our goalkeeper. And so it was, I think we had sign language for PTFC, just various things like that. Whatever anyone wanted to put on it, we were just like, go ahead. Because I think I don't know how many we did. I think it was over 200. And so
Oh my God.
after probably 50 of like a certain like theme, it was just like, can we just let people go nuts? And that was kind of it. And so yeah, that's why it just, you know, it turned out really well, and everybody loved them because it was their own shield. And when people got to the stands, because we put them out before the game, before anyone gets there, and so people were wandering around trying to find their shield that they made so they could take it to their seat and hold it.
Oh, that's great. So it's spread
Yeah,
out throughout the whole stadium.
yeah, yeah. Oh, mostly just the north end, but
Okay.
yeah.
Um, and this, you know, it can even relate to this next one as well, the constellation.
Uh-huh.
So you can maybe give us an idea of what this piece that we're now looking at was about and how it originated. But then broadly, could you also explain what does that decision process look like for the whole group when you're meeting at the beginning of the year, like we're choosing which games, what we want to focus on, and how it gets from that meeting stage to these really impressive works.
Yeah. So Constellation was our 20, was that, did I say that was our 2018 home opener? Yeah, because that was the year after we
After
won our
the
second.
championship, yeah.
Yeah, after we won our second star. So Emily Menges, in her celebration speech inside the stadium, said, "Let's make a constellation." And so that thought stayed in everybody's head. And so when the season was rolling around, it was like, we have to make, you know, there has to be a tifo of a constellation. A big thing that had also happened the season we won was Nadine Ungara had a thing about ice bears, and I think she gave a pre-game speech or something like that, where she referred to the players as ice bears, and you guys are like, you're tough and you're this and you're that, and we're going to win. And it became just, once everybody in the supporters group found out about it, it was just like, this is amazing and brilliant. And so when we won, we obviously had to include the ice bears as well, because that was part of the reason why the team got there, was just partially the ridiculousness of that, but it was support. And it was Nadine Ungara, kind of like in a nutshell. She's brilliant, but she's funny. And and then we made the ice bears and the 2 trophies and the flower crown that a number of supporters had started wearing in the stands. And then one of our capos started wearing later on in the seasons and wears them still on and off. And then we chose Lindsay Horan, basically, to be the centerpiece of the constellation. And
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, and that
Linda Horan, or was it Linda Horan or Lindsay Horan that showed up?
Lindsay, yeah.
Oh no, I'm just joking because
in the World Cup, right?
During the World Cup, when she kind of took over their first match and kind of
this past World
Cup, some of the players were talking, and I think they were also on Men in Blazers. or the saying when she gets like that zoned in, it changes from Lindsay to Linda. It's like her focus.
It's like her
She's
alter
serious.
ego.
She's serious now. She
when
means
she's that
business.
serious, like watch out, you don't want to mess with Linda.
That's fair.
Yeah,
fair.
absolutely.
Yep, I'd be scared of her too. If she was not on our team, I would have been ooh, yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
think
Huh? Go ahead.
I was just saying this this example to me has a lot that really is distinct about the work you all do, is that it's very one, it's the ambition is huge, and then a lot of times when you see large scale tifo work, because it has to be paint by number section just to get it done, it has a rougher quality, but all of the riveters work seems to have a really one original design, but also kind of a
Yeah.
fine finish quality. Is that true, or am I just kind of is
No,
the
yeah, it's kind of our biggest fault in our group is that my friend who is our main designer for most of these tifos um really loves to do intricate designs that have quite a bit of detail. And so we're there with like little brushes and it takes hours and hours and hours. Like Midsummer, our home opener this year, all of the flowers and the different colors in the flowers it took. We didn't finish Midsummer until the stage banner. We didn't finish that piece until the morning of the game.
oh
And
my
we were in there
gosh.
like touching it up and then using a hairdryer to dry it so we could take it in and deploy it that day.
And
So
would you normally
yeah.
rehearse for that? And did you have to skip a rehearsal or?
For the stage banner, no.
Okay.
For the large display, yeah, we typically go in the night before or a couple of nights before the match. And we do it. It can be anywhere between 8:30 at night and 1 a.m. Kind of depends how things go. Sometimes they go really well, and sometimes they don't go really well at all. But yeah, the big displays we usually try to get done as quickly as possible, and we try to leave like a day before the test lift for any touch-ups or any just
Okay.
is this okay or should we just slightly change this.
And then you also mentioned that this piece was one that you worked on that was kind of important, and this was this season. This is 2023,
Yeah,
a July game, I think, but
yeah,
it was the Pride.
it was
Was it
our
the
pride
Pride game?
display.
The Pride
Yeah,
display,
yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
And it's dedicated to a kind of Portland icon. Do you want to explain
Yeah,
what is in this?
yeah, it's dedicated to Darcel, who passed away earlier in the year. And essentially, as soon as she passed away, one of the members of our group immediately, I think that week, was, saying, hey, we have to do a tribute to Darcel. And so we had, I can't remember when she passed away. I think it was during the season. The season had already started. So we'd already done our home opener. And so our next TIFO in line was Pride. And so we had already kind of like been putting our heads, together to start thinking of ideas. But as soon as that news broke and as soon as our friend was like, this is what we should do, we're like, yeah, absolutely. And so it wasn't until I think it was about 2 months before Pride that we started talking about it again.
Mhm.
And it was probably within the last month before Pride or a little bit before that the concept basically came about. And essentially, Darcel was an icon in Portland. And so we wanted to make her the focal point of the TIFO. And her lipstick and her eye makeup were basically two of her biggest characteristics that made her so recognizable. So we wanted to feature that like component of her specifically. And so putting her in a frame with the glitter, the little pieces around her, basically just to bring that spotlight in even closer. to make it like she was in lights was the
Mm.
idea. And then it was kind of a similar situation with the stage banner where we wanted like that frame around "You Can't Stop Us" to basically the three things that we wanted to highlight in it were her final words before she passed away was "We will keep going," and the member of our group who started this concept, she felt that was an important message for our community, for the Portland community, especially the LGBTQ community, but also for the players on the field after everything that they'd gone through. And so that was like, those were the important things, were the messages that we put out there, but also having her be the focal point.
And that's an interesting subject. I know Maria has more questions about the logistics of these, but since you brought that up, I do think that's an interesting point. What was it like as such a strong supporters group to carry through a period with a team that was where there was so much issues with ownership and the league that were really awful? And you know, clearly you're separating your team, the individual players, and the community away from that, but you can't escape it because that's the umbrella that has been forced underneath. And I mean, just we've talked about all these issues before, you know, just like the kind of deplorable things that happen. But I'm wondering if you want to talk on that for a second.
Our biggest thing was maintaining support for the players while also getting a message out that we weren't okay with what happened. And so we did that in a few different ways. I think it was last year, we didn't do a home opener. I think it was last year. We didn't do a home opener tifo. And we held up 2 sticks. No, we had oh god, I can't remember exactly what we had, but we had something that wasn't necessarily it was not supportive towards the players. And as soon as we did it, we were like, we got a message out, but it wasn't the right message.
Okay.
And so the next week or the next match, we had a display, and it was "This sparks joy." And that was it. That became the theme for that season. And so I think that was, we tried to be as supportive to the players as we could, but we also wanted to, you know, put some messages out there that supported them, but also still said that we weren't okay with what happened. And we still wanted, you know, change to come. And we still do, because we're still waiting.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Remind us again how many people are on the tifo team. What it kind of start to finish timeline, you know, the basics.
Okay. So there's about, I want to say, 7 of us in the core group that communicate fairly actively, and there are a few others that come in intermittently. Essentially, we do 3 tifos during the regular season. We do the home opener, we do Pride, and we do the home closer. And then if we're fortunate and we make it to the playoffs and we host, we do a semi-final display or a quarterfinal display, whatever it happens to be. In the rare chance we host the final and we're in it, we also do a final display, which we did once and we did not win. Typically, it goes 2 ways. Sometimes at the beginning of the year, we have like a clear idea of what we want to do and where we want to go with our theme. And sometimes they work together. Like the bonfire series that happened, I think that was 2017 too, where our final game of the season happened to be the rain. And then we happened to play them again in the semi-final playoff. And so that was just sheer coincidence that we played them in the final. We played them for our final game, and then we played them the next the match following that. So that was essentially a sheer coincidence that turned out to be kind of the bonfire series. But generally, we have protect this place was pretty important after we won the Shield. It also became important following the fire in the gorge. And it was like, okay, it is also more important to protect our community and the things around it that we love. Sparking joy was a theme that we did last year, I believe. And this year we don't necessarily have a theme. We're kind of just we're still kind of bouncing back from all the investigations and the outcomes of those investigations. So nothing really is necessarily flowing together, but I guess the underlying thing is, we're trying to support the players and we're trying to just, say that these are the things that we're still pushing a little bit, for change to happen. And we're still like a little bit, Midsummer was pretty dark for us, even though it was very bright and colorful. It had a very obviously dark message to it. But so generally we try to have a theme most seasons, but not every season we can. The process from painting tifo to deploying tifo, it depends on the scale. Midsummer took, I think, 3 weekends and a lot of weeknights and touch-ups on the final day of the match. We do, it kind of depends. It depends on the size and the scale and how intricate the design is. It also, the test lift is a big factor in certain displays as well, and getting that to go off without a hitch can also be problematic. We had, for this, we will keep going, the Pride display, we get our fabric. It's the fabric used for sail ships. Because there's a company in Portland that we buy our fabric from, because obviously we're often doing 80 feet by 48 feet displays. And sometimes we do 2 of them, sometimes we do 3 of them. It kind of depends. They're roughly that's our biggest. I think 60 by 48 was the one we did yesterday. So they're big. And we have, so at the top of the tifos are 5 or 6 grommet holes where we attach a carabiner that attaches to a rope on a pulley, and that's how we deploy it by hand. And so we went in to do our Pride display, our test lift. So we transported over from our warehouse, which is just around the corner from the stadium. We carried in every 7 or 8 or 9 people. It kind of depends on how many people we can get, because it's often fairly late, and sometimes it's a Thursday night or a Friday night, and people have work and school and stuff like that. And so we go into the stadium, we carry the Pride tifo in, and originally it was it is where it was supposed to be in the photo. So it was always going to be a concourse lift at the back.
Okay.
And so we get to the stadium. The Timbers Army rigging crew does our rigging because they've been doing it for years.
Okay.
And typically for a concourse lift, how it works is the stadium lends us their scissor lift, and they just go up and they basically throw over the rope, and that's it. It's that simple. Doesn't take very long. You just have to go, along the concourse to the 5 different sections and drop a rope over. On this particular night, the scissor lift that they had for us in the north end was not tall enough.
Oh no.
The one that we needed was on the other end of the stadium, but it was too wide to go through the interior of the stadium. But it didn't have enough power to go up the only hill outside the stadium to drive around. And the forklift that they had to push it up the hill was not working.
Oh, jeez.
And that was a discovery that was made 5 minutes after we got there with the tifo, and the rigging crew was looking very panicked, and there was a lot of people having conversations, and I was like, what is happening? And our lead designer was out of the country, and before I started project managing a lot of our tifos, she was the one that mostly did it, and then I would just support her how she needed to be supported. But this was my first one I did virtually on my own with the rigging and stuff, like communicating with the rigging team. Anyway, so she was out of town, and I was like, this is great. This is going so well. And so there were conversations, and they're like, okay, they might be able to rent a bigger scissor lift, and they'll just drive it in tomorrow morning. I think it was an afternoon game, I think. And so they're like, we could get a big scissor lift here by 10 a.m. or something like that. We can rig it up and everything will be fine. And then they're like, worst case scenario, we can't rent one. We can't get the forklift fixed. How about we rig at the front and we do a front lift instead of a concourse lift? And at that point, I think it had been almost an hour, and we're like, we need to deploy it. So, okay, let's hope that everything can get sorted out and they can get what they need to and rig it as normal. But yes, let's rig the front. So if nothing goes right, we will deploy it as a front lift, which is definitely not how that piece of fabric was designed to be deployed. So they rig it. We go to do our test lift. We go to hook the carabiner into the grommet holes, and the grommet holes are small. They're too small for the carabiners to fit.
Were they different carabiners than normal, or what? Different
they were
grommet
the
holes than
exact
normal?
same carabiners, but our supplier for the fabric
Changed?
put the wrong
Oh,
size
no.
grommet on the fabric. And we never thought about it because we, painted
Because why would you? Yeah.
Yeah, because it hadn't happened before.
Yeah.
And so we're like, oh no, I'm standing there and I'm just like, how do I tell my friend Hannah that this is happening on her first tifo and she's out of the country? Because after it was like, what else? What else could go wrong? We managed to force the carabiners in. It took about 25 minutes. One of them, we had to find some random piece of metal behind, basically under the stage. There was just a couple of random pieces of metal, like at the back of the field. And
That's good. That's the kind of metal you want to grab.
Yeah, it was so random. We don't even know what it was for. But we managed to get all of the carabiners on, and
the police are still looking for that evidence.
Yeah, we managed to get everything sorted, and we did our test lift, and it looked horrible.
Oh no!
Darcel, basically, the middle of it was kind of folded in.
Oh no!
So you could barely see Darcel, and we're like, oh, this is not great. This is really not great. And so we did a lot of talking with the head of the rigging from the Tibbers Army, and we came up with some solutions if we still had to go that way. And it was just, it's going to be what it's going to be, and we'll just have to tell people after the fact if we have to do it this way, this is why. And so we packed up and we went home. We got there around 9 p.m. We left the stadium after midnight that night. It was game day when we left. And we were like, should we just stay here? And so the next morning, the head of our rigging, Austin, he sent a text message at, I think it was around 8:30 in the morning. And he's like, they managed to use whatever power was in the forklift to push the scissor lift up the hill. And he's like, I'm on my way to the stadium to rig it for a concourse lift. And we were just like, you're kidding.
That's great, but also we just spent like a
we spent many hours like stressing over it. My friend who pushed this concept and I were talking all night. And early the next morning, we were just like, what do we? She was understandably panicked because this was her first big tifo that she had worked on. And she was obviously understandably panicked. And we were just waiting for a message. And we didn't want to message like everybody be like, what's happening? What's happening? We're
Right.
like,
You don't
it's
wanna
going to be
freak it, yeah.
calm. Yeah. And so when we finally got the message, she basically just jumped in her car and just went straight to the stadium. She's like, I'm just going to watch. I'm just going to make sure. She's like, I just need to see that they're putting the ropes in the right places. And I'm like, okay. And so, yeah, it can be a saga sometimes. That was a first for us. We never had that happen. We kind of rolled with the punches, and then it worked out in the end at the 11th hour. And I mean, she looked amazing and everybody loved her. So that was the most important part in the
That
end.
looks
It was
fantastic.
like the hours of stress were obviously well worth it in the end because, yeah, it was so good. And everybody in the crowd was just amazed and surprised.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
now
the-
you know absolutely everything that can ever possibly go wrong, and you're prepared for every scenario.
That's more or less. I think that
Until
was
the next time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we did have a little bit of an issue with this last lift, but it was getting into our warehouse where we paint our tifo. But once we could get in and we could get it out, we actually finished our test lift for our home closer yesterday. It took 25 minutes. It was flawless. Everything that went right, everything that could go wrong did not go wrong at all. It was just people got there early to help. The stadium front, like the stadium security let us in immediately. They gave us carts to transport everything. The test lift went up. There was nothing wrong, and it went straight down like 2 minutes later before people could look at it from across the way. And it was like, we're just like, why couldn't this happen with Pride? it was like, what? We're kind of waiting for something just really random to happen, and nothing happened. And we're like, it's 9:10, and we didn't expect to be out of here for at least another hour. And it was like, let's go home.
Well, you all are definitely doing some of the most distinctive work in football, but that's not the only distinctive thing about the Thorns this year. This made big waves with us at the beginning of the season. Was the release of this kit. Rhea, did you have thoughts on this that you want to ask Kay about?
How did you find out that this is my chest tattoo? Who's been watching me?
You're a big Timbers supporter, RCPAD.
Yeah, somebody's been watching me over there, and they owe me a lot of money.
Someone at Nike was like, "Hey, I like that. I like what they've got going on."
So what do you know the story, and what was your take on this, and other supporters?
Apparently this was a concept that came about a couple of years ago, more I think, which is why when we won our 3rd star that they had to place it on the top above the dagger instead of inside the dagger, because when they designed it, we'd only won 2 stars.
Oh, okay.
But then we won our 3rd star, and so we have to put a star. We have to put another star in it somewhere. A lot of my friends in the Riveters were talking about Ed Hardy. I didn't grow up here, so I was not familiar. I was just like, that looked like something I don't know, 17-year-old boy would wear when like to the skate park or something like that, when he wanted to look like really tough, but he probably wasn't.
So you didn't have any strong feelings then. That's what I'm
I didn't have strong feelings about it. No, I thought, oh, okay, that's different. I think the funniest thing about it was it leaked online on, I think it was just some random website that was selling it already. Because that's generally what's happened with a lot of the kit releases in Portland, even for the Timbers, is someone goes to a Ross outlet
Right.
like shopping
They
store,
put it
and
out
it's
already. Yeah.
and they've already put it out on display, and so someone posted online. And I think that was kind of the same situation as this. Like people are like, that can't be it. Like that has to be a joke. Um, I think it's grown on a lot of people, especially as like we've done really well this season, and it's like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, yeah, we're winning, and our new kid is interesting. Um, I I think I
Yeah.
would have liked it better with the roses on the shoulder and the crest in the middle. Probably could have done away with the dagger and the Rose City Till I Die, because that's not exactly the Portland Thorns. That's more Timbers centric.
Yeah.
Ours is by any other name.
Okay.
Generally, that's what that's our little thing. Because obviously a rose by any other name, like thorns, and
Right.
but it's gotten better. It's gotten better the more I see it, and the more people I see wearing it, and just the ridiculousness of like you can get a scarf that looks like it. You can get, I think you can get a jacket that looks like, I don't
Okay.
know. They've got quite a lot of attire now that has like this similar theme and the
And I
design
bet
on it.
I bet Maria's not the only one who got the tattoo as well. I'm sure.
I mean,
No, they
I'm sure
stole my tattoo. They
Oh, I'm
stole
there are
my
sorry. That's
definitely
right.
a lot of people in Poland who would have a tattoo that looks like that. Absolutely.
Well, you
But
mentioned that part of the reason you warmed to it is because the season goes well. You are top of the table, just barely ahead of San Diego.
hanging
How,
on by a thread.
how are you feeling about winning the league and heading into the playoffs?
This season has been wild. Up until last weekend, every team in the league could have made the playoffs. And at the moment, only two teams are out and only two teams are in,
Mhm.
which is unbelievable. I feel like we've had a very, very, very good team, and even when we had Sophia Smith was injured and we didn't have Becky
Mhm.
Sauerbrunn for quite some time, we've had a lot of new young players who've just been unbelievable. And then obviously we have amazing leadership in Christine Sinclair, and it's
Mhm.
just I think it's
Total
going to be,
icon. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's going to be hard for us not to win it, but I think we could be our own worst enemy and just get too far ahead of ourselves in the stands and on the field. So I don't know. I'm quietly confident we could win it again. I don't think we. I will be okay if we don't, because it's been such a competitive season.
Yeah.
But it would be fun to have another star for sure. And it
Yeah.
would be pretty wild if it somehow worked out that it was Portland versus San Diego in San Diego. I think that'd be
That would
pretty
be very
crazy.
cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and then one other thing, I think this World Cup this past summer highlighted the effect of how much the women's game has taken hold in Europe and
yeah,
how the quality of league play overseas has really rapidly increased. And I think
yeah.
that's in part because of the teams being part of such huge organizations that have such big infrastructure
Hmm.
and networks. And
Yeah,
I think, especially because it was a disappointing result for the U.S. women's team. I think that's just because the game's level's risen and things just didn't bounce their way. But as a supporter and kind of a longer term NWSL uh, fan, when you look at the current situation, do you think we've entered a position where the league it's no longer competitive with European leagues because of the infrastructure they have? And do you see any issues with kind of how we're able to recruit and grow the game through this league now that we have that level of competition? And if that's too much of a like question, that's fine.
I've thought about this a bit even
Mhm,
before I saw even before you asked, like you wrote that question in an
mhm,
email. Um, I think I think our league overall is a lot better than Europe. Just in terms of how far we've come in
mhm.
such a short period of time. Like the European leagues have been there for a lot longer than ours has
Mhm.
successfully. But I think the difference is, which this past season in the NWSL has definitely shown, I think, in my opinion, why our league is stronger, even without the big infrastructure of clubs like Arsenal or Bayern Munich or Barcelona. Because you look at, I think Sky Blue, now Gotham, is like one of the biggest representations of that, is that their ownership basically were, they didn't care. And the
Right.
fans were calling them out for it. And at the time, they had a new GM who isn't with the club anymore. But she listened to the fans and she said, "What do you want?" And they listened and they implemented change, and they brought that change to the owners. And the owners woke up and they're like, "We aren't doing enough." And so they did. They put in more for their players, and it's shown, because the players on the team want to be there now. They are getting the support that they need. They're getting, and they're being successful. Like, I think Gotham is 4th on the ladder right now, something like that. And they had one of the best players in the world for multiple seasons when they were Sky Blue. And it was only because of that one particular player that they did well, but they never, ever got to the end where they would win a championship or be in a final. It was just, they didn't have the support. And I think in the European leagues, in Spain, it's basically 2 clubs that are at the top and nobody else. In France, it's 2 clubs that are at the top. In Germany, it's 2 clubs. And England is growing now. I mean, they had, how many supporters they have at, it was Arsenal, and who did they just play? Liverpool, and Liverpool beat Arsenal. And up until and I think that also kind of, Liverpool on their men's side have had wonderful financial support, but the women have more or less been an afterthought to them.
Right.
But now they're finally getting recognized within. So I think our league is better. I think we've pushed further in less time. And you can see that change basically in the results of this season, where every club, every team was competitive until basically the second last round of the season. And anyone could have made it to the playoffs last week. And you don't see that in the European leagues. You just see the same 2 or 3 teams every time. And they alternate sometimes every couple of years or every year between who will win. Whereas, here it's harder to predict, especially as we expand and the game does grow, and more money is being put into it, and more facilities are being directed to women, and specifically just for them as well.
I think that's an interesting response in terms of the parity as an argument for greater success, than just kind of replicating a model of like a few giants and then a bunch of other people fighting for the scraps. Because that's more about the game. So I appreciate that answer. Thank you.
Before we end, Kate, is there anything that you wanted to say that we didn't get to?
Just keep showing up and support your local club, because it's fun.
It is fun.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Kay. It's great having you on and hearing your stories and getting another peek behind the scenes at seriously one of the best tifo games in NWSL. So congratulations and good luck with the rest of the season.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. It's fun. It's so much fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming. And don't ever talk to 2 Chicago fans about not caring about winning the championship. That's cruel.
You also had Sam go. And you didn't quite get there. Yeah. And I think one of them happened in Portland too.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. that was a great interview.
was.
Thanks so much to Kay. She dealt with a lot of technical issues beforehand, but it was really fun to hear what they do. They do great work. I mean, those are really good. Really good.
The Constellation one has to be one of my favorites for sure.
It is. Well, now that I know that it's Lindsay Horan, it's by far my favorite. She's one of my favorite players after the World Cup this summer. So,
yeah.
All right. I think that's it. Anything else?
It's cold out here.
Yeah. We'll figure this video thing out at some point. All right. Until next week. Bye.
Okay, bye.